The footsteps echoing through the hospital corridor were a bit quicker than usual. April Wilson had been carrying an unsettled feeling ever since receiving a phone call from her father. "Ms. Wilson, you look lovely today." As she passed the nurse's station, an elderly patient greeted her with a gentle smile. April paused, returning the smile warmly. Tucking her long brown hair behind her ear, she responded with a soft, "Take care." Her gesture carried the composure of a veteran nurse with 7 years of experience. Her simple scrubs suited her petite frame of about 5 feet 3 inches. Her subtle makeup and neat appearance gave patients a sense of security. Today, however, there was a hint of shadow lurking behind her usually peaceful expression. "Dad." In the break room, April let out a deep sigh while staring at her cell phone screen. It displayed a message from her father. "We're having a family meeting tomorrow. Catherine will be there too." The mention of her sister's name for the first time in 3 years made her chest tighten. The autumn foliage visible from Mount Auburn Hospital's windows announced the deepening fall in Cambridge. April's memories drifted back to this season 3 years ago. Her sister Catherine was her complete opposite. Model height, tall with flashy blonde hair. Always dressed in luxury brands with heavy makeup, she constantly drew attention. As a high-end real estate agent, she valued her connections with the upper class and continuously posted about her lavish lifestyle on social media. And then there was Michael. Just thinking his ex-husband's name still sent a jolt of pain through her. As a cardiologist on the fast track to success, he cut an impressive figure, tall and slim with refined features. His appearance in expensive suits made him the envy of the hospital staff. However, beneath that superficial charm lay a calculating and domineering nature. Their father Joseph was a mild-mannered but strong-willed doctor. With his graying short hair and warm gaze, he had built a distinguished career as a cardiac surgeon, saving many lives. He was supposed to be enjoying a quiet retirement now. Surely not. April felt anxious considering the reason for this sudden family meeting. Since losing her beloved mother 3 years ago, the family's dynamic had changed dramatically. Her mother had been a kind and devoted woman who, despite battling rheumatoid arthritis, continued to care for her family until the very end. Why would her sister, who had abandoned their mother's care and stolen April's husband, return now? "April, could you help with blood draws on the 4th floor?" Brought back to reality by a colleague's voice, April quietly stood up. Her serious and sincere nature, along with her consideration for others, these were precious qualities inherited from her mother. The evening sky visible from the hospital windows carried a premonition of tomorrow. April first met Michael in Mount Auburn Hospital's cafeteria 5 years ago, in spring. "Is this seat taken?" He approached her with a smile in his white coat during a crowded lunch hour. That day marked the beginning of their story. As a rising star in the cardiology department, Michael was quite renowned within the hospital. Casual conversations during breaks and occasionally overlapping shifts, these eventually became intentional coincidences that developed into a serious relationship. "How about dinner?" was his first date invitation. April felt slightly nervous at the fancy Italian restaurant's course meal. But Michael's gentlemanly behavior gradually opened her heart. On weekends, they would walk along the Charles River or enjoy art at the Boston Museum. Their romance progressed smoothly under the envious gazes of others. "I've been waiting for someone as sincere as you." He proposed at a restaurant near Harvard Square. Outside the window, maple leaves danced in the autumn wind. Tears rolled down April's cheeks as he placed the ring on her finger. The wedding was held in a church, blessed by both families. As April stood in her pure white wedding dress, her mother smiled with tears in her eyes. Catherine wore a somewhat reserved smile as she served as maid of honor. Looking back now, perhaps there was already something calculating in that smile. Their newlywed life seemed like the classic American dream. April lovingly prepared lunch boxes every morning, and they enjoyed brunches together on holidays. The apple pie she learned from her mother became Michael's favorite. The starry sky they saw during their vacation in Cape Cod seemed to promise eternal happiness. However, the happy days didn't last long. The first changes were subtle. Michael started coming home later, and even on holidays, he would head to the hospital claiming important surgeries. His complaints about April's home cooking gradually surfaced. "I wish we could eat at fancy restaurants like Catherine does. As a nurse, you can't keep up with my social circle. Catherine has better taste than you, don't you think?" April endured such remarks desperately. All household chores became her responsibility, and dining out meant only expensive restaurants. Credit card bills kept mounting. Still, she endured it all for the sake of love. To make matters worse, her mother's condition deteriorated. Severe rheumatoid arthritis began interfering with daily life. Catherine made excuses about being too busy with work, leaving all the caregiving burden to April. "I'm very sorry, but visiting hours are over." Even when colleagues at the nursing station told her this, April couldn't leave her mother's room. For changes, position changes, feeding assistance, she continued supporting her mother as both a nurse and a daughter, utilizing her professional knowledge. "April, staying so late." "I'm sorry." At her mother's weak voice, April forced a smile. Balancing work and caregiving was more demanding than she had imagined, but her love for her mother kept her going. Meanwhile, Michael's attitude grew increasingly cold. "Staying at the hospital again? Pay attention to me sometimes. Why don't you just leave the caregiving to a facility?" Such conversations became routine. Then came that day. In the hospital parking lot, after working overtime, April was heading to her car. That's when she saw two familiar shadows, embracing in a luxury car. Michael and Catherine. "Oh my, did we get caught?" Catherine's loud laughter pierced the cold night air. Michael, with a defiant expression, said, "Well, it's over. Let's get divorced." The divorce was one-sided. Michael demanded hefty alimony, while Catherine called their parents home, continuously slandering April. Photos of the two at expensive restaurants kept appearing on social media. "Did you really not know?" Everyone else noticed. "A plain woman like you could never satisfy Michael." Catherine's words stung like poison needles. Then their mother passed away shortly after. Fatigue and emotional distress had rapidly worsened her condition. In her final moments, she whispered a small "I'm sorry." To April, it sounded like an apology about her sister and Michael. Catherine didn't even appear at their mother's funeral. From that day on, April left her family home and started living alone in a small apartment. It was a clean one-room apartment, chosen for its proximity to the hospital. Looking out the window, the evening sky was dyed crimson. 3 years had passed since then. The wedding ring had long since disappeared from April's finger. In its place, her mother's keepsake ring now quietly gleamed. The Cambridge streetscape hinted at winter's approach. In the taxi heading to her family home, April reflected on the 3-year gap. Life alone in a small apartment. 12-hour shifts at the hospital. Days passed by monotonously. Occasionally, she would glimpse her sister and brother-in-law's flashy lifestyle on social media. Parties in luxury apartments, European vacation photos, showing off new foreign cars. These seemed to be posted deliberately for April to see. That family looks so happy. What a perfect couple. April would quietly scroll past the numerous comments. Contact with her father was limited to monthly phone calls and birthday visits. It was his suggestion. Focus on healing your heart for now. April had kept her distance, following those words. Then came that one phone call. I want to have a family meeting. I've contacted Catherine. Those words made April's heart jump. The sister couple's response was quick. Catherine immediately booked a luxury hotel, and Michael started contacting lawyers. They seemed to be anticipating a discussion about inheritance. The taxi stopped in front of the family home. The Victorian-style house built in the 1920s maintained the same dignity April remembered. In the garden, enclosed by white fences, the rose bushes her mother had cherished were prepared for winter. Her steps toward the entrance were heavy. However, the moment she opened the door, April noticed something was different. The living room had subtly changed. In her father's beloved study, there was a new file cabinet. Multiple PDF files were open on the computer screen. On the table lay neatly arranged stacks of documents. Among them, she could see bills from her mother's care facility. Glad you could make it. Turning around, there stood her father. His salt and pepper hair and warm gaze were familiar, but his expression carried something resolute. In fact, her father had been quietly gathering evidence for these 3 years. Hospital security camera footage. Unpaid notices from the care facility. Copies of her mother's diary. Records of Catherine's cold text messages. And numerous social media posts showing the couple's extravagant lifestyle. Today's the day to reveal everything. At her father's quiet words, the doorbell rang. The sound of expensive high heels echoed in the hallway. Then, 2 familiar voices. Still single? Hey, ugly, haven't changed? April's body trembled slightly. But her father's expression remained unwavering. The Wilson family living room still maintained its dignity. Family photos lined the walls, and her mother's favorite classical music played, Bach's Air on the G-string, her most beloved piece. The scent of coffee faintly filled the space. The two who had settled into the large sofa behaved as if they owned the house. Catherine crossed her legs, slightly swaying her expensive high heels. Michael looked around the room with an apparently bored expression. April sat in a single chair, quietly keeping her eyes down. In her simple dress, she projected the same modest presence as 3 years ago. However, her eyes now held a different kind of strength. Father, I've consulted with lawyers about the inheritance. Catherine started with a syrupy voice. The word inheritance made April's brows slightly furrow. Yes, we've been thinking about the future. As Michael tried to continue, their father quietly stood up. Perfect timing. I have something important to discuss. His voice carried a core of strength within its usual mildness. The evening light falling on his graying hair added to his dignity. At that moment, the couple's expressions changed. Catherine's smug smile froze. Michael's arrogant expression showed signs of unease. They exchanged glances involuntarily. First, let's talk about my condition. His words transformed the room's atmosphere. I have terminal pancreatic cancer. A heavy silence fell. 3 months to live. Tears glistened in April's eyes. However, this was a fact she had already been told. Meanwhile, Catherine and Michael's expressions underwent dramatic changes. Shock, agitation, and calculation. Michael's medical eyes instantly understood the gravity of the condition. Father, we'll take care of you. Catherine hurriedly offered, trying to smooth things over. Her lips trembled slightly beneath her perfect makeup. Yes, I can provide the best treatment. Michael tried to emphasize his position as a doctor. However, their father quietly raised his hand, cutting off their words. That won't be necessary. He slowly walked to his study. From a drawer, he pulled out an envelope. The thick envelope bore a notary's seal. I want you to see this. The sound of opening the envelope echoed unusually loud. This is... Catherine's voice cracked. These are records of your mother's care expenses. Their father began explaining calmly. Catherine, records of care facility payments you embezzled. Michael, falsified medical certificates. And, one by one, evidence was laid out on the table. Security camera footage. Unpaid notices from the care facility. Copies of their mother's diary. Catherine's cold text messages. Social media post records. That's not all. Their father turned the computer screen toward them. I also have records from the day mother passed away. The screen showed security camera footage from the hospital. Decisive evidence of where they were when their mother was critical. The color drained from Catherine's face. Cold sweat began appearing on Michael's forehead. You left mother to die. Their father's voice was low and heavy. And then lived luxuriously with that money. Outside the window, the snow was intensifying. As the fireplace flames flickered, their father continued presenting evidence one by one. His movements retained the precision of his years as a cardiac surgeon. Let's start with the care expense records. First spread out were stacks of bills from Mount Auburn Care Facility. 3 years of records, chronologically arranged. Catherine, you received $5,000 monthly for mother's care expenses. Their father's voice remained perfectly calm. However, no payments were actually made. Unpaid notices from the care facility were revealed one after another. Red-lettered payment demands. Records of facility staff concerns. All showing that their mother hadn't received the care she should have. This must be some mistake. Catherine's voice trembled. Her perfect makeup was beginning to crack. It's no mistake. Their father opened the computer screen. These are your bank account records. The screen showed evidence of care expenses being diverted to other uses. Luxury brand purchase history. Overseas travel payments. Car loans. Traces of their lavish lifestyle, recorded as data. Their father's gaze turned to his former son-in-law. Michael. You were complicit in this. Next shown were hospital records. False medical certificates written by Michael. Records understating their mother's condition. Reports underestimating care needs. As a doctor, Michael's words trailed off. Professional pride versus exposed misconduct. His expression twisted in between. And this is the decisive evidence. What their father pulled out was a diary. Their mother's final days recorded in her handwriting. Today I tried contacting Catherine again, but was refused. I can't burden April anymore. As their mother's words were read aloud, tears flowed from April's eyes. I consulted Michael, but he wouldn't listen. The pain in my heart hurts more than my physical pain. Catherine's makeup was completely crumbling now. Expensive mascara streaked down her cheeks. There's more. Next shown was hospital security camera footage. On the day their mother was critical, Catherine and Michael reveling at a luxury restaurant. The timestamp mercilessly recorded the time. Do you remember what happened that day? Their father's voice carried emotion for the first time. Mother waited for you both until the end. April's memory returned to that day. The white hospital room. Their mother's weak breathing. And her unfulfilled final wish. But we had work. Catherine's words no longer even qualified as excuses. Work. Their father quietly opened the social media records. Look at this post. The screen displayed Catherine's post from that day. Having the best night ever. Michael's face turned ashen. Their father took out the final envelope. This is my will. A substantial document bearing a notary's seal. Its contents froze the couple's expressions. All assets will be inherited by April. The room's air grew heavy. And I've set conditions for you both. Their father slowly stood up. An apology at mother's grave. Full repayment of embezzled care expenses. And his words paused momentarily. The funds I had prepared for my treatment will all be donated. What? Catherine stood up. Her brand name handbag fell to the floor. That's illegal. We have inheritance rights. You think you have such rights? Their father's gaze pierced sharply. Rights for those who left mother to die? Michael couldn't hide his panicked expression anymore. His position as a doctor. Social credibility. Everything was about to crumble. We have lawyers. Legally, this. Their father responded coolly. All evidence is already stored in multiple locations. With lawyers and prosecutors. The room's air froze. You have two choices. Accept the conditions, or. The rest didn't need to be said. Outside, the snow continued falling heavily. The warm winter days once spent as a family now seemed like distant memories. Their mother's beloved Bach piece quietly announced its end. 1 year later. April had moved into her father's house and started a new life. In the garden, the roses were beginning to bud, and the flowers their mother had loved were once again filled with vibrant life. Ms. Wilson, congratulations on becoming head nurse. Her reputation at Mount Auburn Hospital had steadily grown. With 7 years of experience and dedication to her work, April had been promoted to head nurse. She was deeply trusted by her staff, and patients' gratitude was endless. Your devoted care back then helped me recover, Ms. Wilson. Whenever she heard such words, April was reminded of her mother. The image of her mother, who possessed both gentleness and strength, had shaped who she was today. The final 3 months with her father became irreplaceable time. The daily nursing wasn't easy. Dedicated care after finishing work. Preparing meals and managing medications. However, each moment was filled with deep love. April, shall we look at the album? One peaceful afternoon, her father opened an old album saying those words. Her young father and mother. Little Catherine and April. The beach at Cape Cod they visited on vacation. Family photos in front of the Christmas tree. Happy memories packed into each page. You are our pride, mine and your mother's. Those were her father's last words. On a peaceful spring morning, bathed in gentle light through the window, he passed away peacefully. In his hand, he held a photo of their mother. Meanwhile, her sister and brother-in-law's lives had changed dramatically. They defaulted on their luxury apartment mortgage and could no longer maintain their lavish lifestyle. Michael's reputation at the hospital plummeted, and unable to bear his colleagues' cold stares, he was forced to transfer to a small clinic in the countryside. The flashy posts disappeared from Catherine's social media. No more luxury brand tags, no more European vacation photos. Her real estate sales plummeted, and her social connections drifted away one by one. Their relationship also headed toward collapse. Mutual blame. Shifting responsibility. Finally, they began living separately. It's all your fault. You're the one who wasted money. The last time April saw them was at their mother's grave. Following the will's conditions, they came to apologize, having completely lost their former swagger. April quietly watched their figures. She no longer felt hatred or anger. She only sensed life's irony and the depth of karma. Now, April stands in her family home's garden. The fragrance of blooming roses drifts on the spring breeze. She sits on her father's favorite bench, basking in the gentle afternoon light. On her hand, her mother's keepsake ring gleams. Planting new flowers is a way to give form to her thoughts of her mother. Tending the garden means preserving family history. Cooking means inheriting her mother's love. In these small daily acts, she found true healing. Dad, Mom, I'm happy. April's quiet voice echoes in the spring garden. Thanks to you both, I can live strongly. Please keep watching over me. Birdsongs gently respond. Newly sprouted flowers sway in the wind. Past anger and hatred had transformed into quiet strength. The past was no longer a burden. It was a precious experience that helped her grow. Her mother's favorite Bach air on the G-string flows from inside the house. April smiled as she looked up at the sky. The spring light warmly embraced her.